Coming through.
Hello, Educate US listeners. Great to be with you again. We have a wonderful guest with us today, Joneé Billy. She is a seasoned social impact leader with a mission to build the divide between nonprofits, corporations, and the public sector to drive transformative change. She has a track record of designing, measuring, and scaling impactful programs across cities, including Power Play, where she now works. She's passionate about building initiatives that bring equity to communities through sports, philanthropy, and social justice. She's committed to making a difference and constantly exploring innovative ways to build equitable opportunities and create meaningful change in the communities she serves. Wow, that is so powerful and beautiful. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So, you have a small part in that mission statement that really talks about sports, but so much of your journey has been in sports. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I've always been really athletic. My parents, my grandparents have always made sure that they put me into sports. So I started playing basketball actually at the age of 12. Walked into a gym, literally to stop people from talking or asking me questions about whether or not I played because I was over 6 feet at the age of 12. And my thing was, you know what, I'm just going to go in there. Yep, I tried it. I didn't like it. And I walked out. But I walked in there and it was the complete opposite. And it was just like, I finally found home. Imagine being a middle schooler, eighth grade, and you're this tall, you stand out. Bullying exists, right? And I walk into a gymnasium and everyone was like, I want the big girl. Like it was just so this face of acceptance that was just like, oh my God, I like this. And then ultimately I fell in love with the game. And the game has taken me places that I couldn't dream of. Excuse me. I was able to continue my playing collegiately. I played at Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts. I then went on to play professionally in Europe. I played in Hungary. My parents are of Caribbean lineage, so I went on to play basketball for Trinidad and Tobago's senior women's national team. So very proud to represent my heritage in that way. And then an opportunity came where one of my friends was coaching netball. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with netball. It's like the original women's basketball, so to speak. Very similar game, no dribbling, right? Um, and it was like, hey, do you want to play? I walked in to support, to volunteer, and it was just like, do you want to play? They see the hype, right? So I jumped in and got a chance to represent Team USA in a couple of international competitions there as well. And so being a lifelong athlete, my body aches now, but I still consider myself an athlete. So I do, I'm a cyclist now, and just exploring and just keeping active.
That's awesome. And I think Stacey and I can both relate to that experience in probably a number of ways. I used to run track. I had a similar feeling when I got into it. Um, and then I was a dancer and just a number of things. But there's nothing like being a young person and finding that thing that like,
Yes,
feels, as you said, feels like home. It's an incredible feeling. And it's beautiful as I get to support my daughter, who's now a gymnast.
I
Um,
love it.
yeah, it really is a beautiful thing. And speaking of which, I'd love for you to share with our listeners just maybe a pivotal moment in somewhere in your athletic career that inspired you to work in empowering young girls through sports. This is really, really crucial part of, I think, your path as I've read about your work and your journey. It's something I'm
Yeah,
incredibly passionate about now as a mom, a gymnast mom, gymnastics mom. So please share
yeah.
with us if you could.
Yeah, for me, I came home. I love the community. I grew up playing basketball at Henry Street Settlement, right? A community center in New York City. And community is the key word there, right? And so I came home from playing ball overseas. You're home for a couple of months before you have to head back. And I'm just like, what can I do? How can I support? Right. And so I go into the gym and things haven't changed. It's the same from when I was there, where I was one of two girls playing with the boys. I didn't have a problem with it. For me, I've always been that tomboy, and that's totally fine. But the reality is, a lot of girls aren't comfortable, nor should they be. You know what I mean? The amount of spaces that are available for boys to play and to learn and to grow and to figure these things out, and it's just not equitable for girls. And so, as I continued my career, once my playing career over ended, and I started into the nonprofit space, I was always very intentional about creating spaces, individualized but equitable spaces for girls to thrive. And it doesn't have to be sport. I would love it to be sport, right? We know all the benefits of sport, and I'm sure we're going to get into that. But if you're into the arts, if you're into the dance, whatever it is that you're into, you need your equitable space and your equitable time to be among company, and to be among your peers and to learn and to grow in those spaces.
Well, two ways I want to go right now. I do want to
Okay.
continue to explore the girls, right? The impact on like sports and leadership and spaces too, because I know in conversations that we've had, you talked about a statistic, right, of girls engaging and then dropping out. And so how do we
Yeah.
keep our young girls engaged? But before we go there, you said the word equitable a couple times,
Yeah.
and it made me think of recently Angel Reese has been posting that her pay, right, can't pay for
Mhm.
her rent. And so it brought up this question again around what is the equitable pay in women's sport, right, versus men's sport, and particularly when we think about the WNBA and the NBA. What are some of your thoughts on how that might become more equitable?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very similar to the story I just shared, right? In the sense of I saw a need for to create these separate spaces. I think it's the same thing where women did not always. The WNBA has only been around for about 26 years, right? And so someone came up. I think I can't remember exactly who was the commissioner at the time, but it was like, listen, all these women, we have all this amazing, talented women here, and they don't have a space where they can play here in the US, and they have to travel overseas in order to play. So they saw a need to create a space for women to play. But I think one of the things that we have to remember in this space is that time allows you to grow and to develop, as with any business, right? I think one of the things that we have to be mindful of is that the W is very young. The W has a lot of eyes on it right now, which is amazing and well past due. But at the same time, over time, I think with the continued exposure, more attracting larger crowds, larger audiences, and just being able to get greater sponsorship and having those companies say, you know what, I want to pour into women's sports because I believe that they do deserve their own equitable space, their own equitable shares in this sponsorship budget. And so I think over time, you'll get to the place where you'll see WNBA players are making more, not equal to what the NBA is making. But I think when you think about the share of what their constant or their current revenue is compared to what the men get, I think that's the question that is being asked a lot. It's not necessarily like, hey, I want to come out and I want to make 35 million or whatever it is that LeBron and all the stars are making. That's not what they were asking for right now. They're asking for equal share of the pie in the fraction of what the players get or generate from their revenue.
Thank you for, unpacking that. It's something I think that is really interesting to people when you hear and see that, right? It's sort of startling, especially when you consider, what in the NBA they're making, and even not the stars, right? Even just
Yeah,
like the low person on the totem pole who might sit on the bench the whole time.
yeah.
And so it's really curious. And I actually shared this with a neighbor, and one of his takes was, well, why don't they join the men's union and then they can like have a coalition together? Or
Yeah,
I was looking at the fact that some teams, and you in fact let me know that not all teams actually have a shared venue. they
yeah.
they have sometimes, well, you even said a barn, right? And then
Mhm.
now they have these shared venues. So are there creative ways that we can help the players in getting their share. I like this idea of what is their share and how do we
Yeah.
create more equity in that?
Yeah, I think it's going out to games, right? The more we continue, we the fans, right, continue to support them, and that means purchasing tickets. It means purchasing, merchandise, going out to the games, purchasing stuff from the concession stands. All of these things, as long as there is interest, the sponsorship will come once the interest is there, and that's what we're seeing, right? For a long time, they were saying, oh, no one watches women's sports. That's a lie, right? We're seeing now that it's here. So now let's pour into these spaces. And that means us as the fans as well. And eventually, I think we will get to that point where, the players are earning a larger share of their revenue. I do believe that the W is also up for a new CBA contract. So Nneka Agumake, she is the current president of the WNBA Players Union. I think she is a stark advocate. She is super intelligent, and all the folks behind the scenes that are making that work, they're really going to go out there and advocate for increased pay, and who knows what else is on the docket, but it's time.
If you turned 65 recently like me, it's important you find a Medicare Advantage plan that gives you the coverage you're looking for. But finding one can be difficult. The best thing I did, and I suggest you do the same, is call a licensed insurance agent and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to, so make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare Advantage plan can be easy if you do what I did. Make a quick call right now to learn more. Thank you. Call 877-476-1681. That's 877-476-1681. Call now.
I really appreciate your perspective, and it's so funny as you're talking. It's making me think about teachers and
Uh,
how undervalued teachers are, and like this
yeah.
perpetual fight to get appropriate pay, and just so many other challenges that come along with doing the thing that you're passionate about. So curious to hear about your specific journey and challenges you faced as a woman athlete and how you've overcome them.
What are some of the challenges I face? I mean, we saw not last night, the night before, Juju Watkins, one of the stars of women's basketball. She went down with an ACL. I too have succumbed to the ACL. I've actually torn it 3 times. Yep, this is why I have no knees now, but it's okay. No regrets. That I would think that would be definitely be one of the challenges that I face. But I think also you're seeing a lot of athletes that are coming out now and speaking about mental health. That's definitely a challenge that I think a lot, folks, people in general, but it's beautiful to see specifically the female athletes that are really putting themselves, open, using their platforms to really talk about mental health. I think one of the struggles that I went through, not necessarily while playing, but it was this transition of no longer playing and what that feels like. Right? Because so much of my identity had been poured into sports. I am Joneé the athlete. This is how I introduce myself. That's who I was. And so when you're no longer Joneé the athlete, who are you? And I don't think that's a space that we talk about enough. I saw a new forum is going up where a lot of former athletes are, just gathering and having these conversations because they're so important. So I would say those are two of the challenges. I've kept close to the game, within my work, within my volunteer time and things like that. And so these things are really supportive in being able to, kind of like maneuver through this phase. But yeah.
It's so interesting because, I think too of I'm an athlete, right? And even now at this point in my life, when I can't run or I can't
Yeah,
do something physically, right, it pulls on you in a way that is really challenging, right, to get through those
yeah,
times. And I can imagine people who have, dedicated actually like almost every minute of their
yeah,
life to something. And then it's over or whatever it might be, whatever that
yeah,
pivotal turning point is where you're like, wait a minute, now what? Who am I
yeah,
actually? Or how do I
yeah.
even, you know, but where's the space now that I can express myself? Because I think sports is a creative artistic outlet actually. And I know a lot of people don't
Absolutely.
talk about it that way, but I think of it in that way too. So yeah. So speaking of, let's tie this back to girls, as we were talking earlier. Tell us some
Yeah,
of the like big statistics about girls in sports. I mean, you all at Power Play do so much work to
yeah,
create those spaces for girls to get engaged. So tell us some why. Like, why is that important?
yeah. I mean, I'll start here where I talk. Power play is very unique in that when you think about traditional sports-based youth development organizations, you're thinking AAU track. I want to get you to a collegiate sponsorship and things like that, and that's not who we are at all. We serve a very niche demographic. It's not to say that you won't get a couple of superstars that come through, but we serve a very niche demographic. We're specifically targeting the young girl that's sitting on the sideline during gym, the ones that are too scared to attend whatever after school programs, right? We're specifically targeting these young people. And then we use a social emotional learning curriculum that was established by the Women in Sport Foundation. And we create this safe space. And then we introduce them to the values of sports. And so I keep saying I'm very intentional with the use of introduce, because once again, we're not looking to churn out professional athletes, but we want to introduce you to sports because we know that sports provides physical wellness. It's great for your, mental health. It's great for all these things. But I think there's a larger statistic out there where sports builds leadership skills, sports builds teamwork skills, sports builds resilience. How do you bounce back from a loss, right? And these are all the things, the skill sets that allows you to become an amazing leader in life. There's a statistic that Stacey mentioned. It's 94% of women in the C-suite level played sports. And that's not by accident, right? This is to tell you that the work that we're doing, how it translates, right? Earlier, a little, I talked about also, what does that transition from playing look like? Well, for some of our young people, they don't want to play at the high school level. They do not want to play at the collegiate level. Well, here's another idea. You don't have to play on the court or on the field, but let me introduce you to these badass women behind the scenes and our allied men, of course, right, that are making sports happen. Because when I was in college, I did not know all the different avenues that were available in sports. But let me introduce you to those skills at the middle school level, at the high school level, so you know that these are options going in and you can better kind of like align your major or whatever your entire educational career to the path that you desire.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call Low Cost Airlines. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call now.
I'm curious about, you talked about this resilience factor.
Yeah.
What do you think is most critical in building that up in young female athletes? Like what's the thing that gets the young people you all work with from where they are to like over that hump, over that whatever that is, that barrier that might be there for them?
I think it's support in these safe spaces that we're talking about, right? When even we think about the social emotional component, that's building your skill sets, that's building your emotional intelligence, it's building, these types of things. And so when young people have safe spaces that they can go to and have conversations, when young people are exposed to mentorship, when young people are exposed to, what's another one? I would just think opportunities in general. I think they understand that I have options, right? It's not one or done. And then, we're consistently there. They have their peers that are consistently championing them. We work with our families as well because, our young people don't make 100% of the decisions in their lives. So how do you support families and be this well-rounded, holistic support system that continues to let them know that, listen, you're out here, you can thrive. We're also exposing them to professional athletes. So yes, there are the workers in the space, but there's also the athletes who come in and share their stories of resilience, share their stories of their challenges and their triumphs as well. So I think all of these things play a really big role in supporting young people and letting them know that, listen, like the opportunities are abundant.
I love that for so many reasons. But ultimately, my oldest son, is really interested in playing, soccer at a university level, and he's doing all the parts and we're kind of towing the line of, hey, let's work towards that. Let's do all the pieces you need to do. Like he's leading that. I don't want to lead that
Yeah.
for him. I can't, right? You can't as a parent. But also for soccer, which is what he wants to play, 7% of the population play in D1, D2, or D3
Yeah.
in men's soccer. And so there's like this very real statistic out there that, the reality is most people will not play in college.
Yeah.
So I love that your program is focused on what other opportunities are there to be in sports and be a part of it. And I think, because you can continue to play and being an athlete in a variety of ways. It doesn't mean you have to go the collegiate professional route. And again, like, I think that's not the conversation we're necessarily having with him because he's working towards that. But we also want him to know and understand that that's not necessarily, that might not happen for you. And I wonder, do you know the percentages for women? Are they that low as well, or?
I actually do not know those statistics.
Yeah.
I think it's consistently evolving as well, right? Obviously, you have Title IX, and so just making sure that there are always opportunities there. So I don't know at this point what the numbers are.
Yeah, I would be curious. I was just curious if you knew from
Yeah,
your
no.
program, but it makes sense because you're not focused on that with them. You're focused
Right.
on building, that those values and
Yes.
introducing and making those spaces, which is so beautiful and makes me think about a lot of people who are like, I'm trying to work out more. I'm trying to
Yeah.
just be more active. What advice would you give anyone at any level when they're like trying to engage in something consistently in that way?
I think it's just going out there. I think it's just going out there and just doing it, right? You want to become a runner. You don't start off running 10 miles, right? You start off, hey, I might jog a half a mile and I might walk the next half a mile and it's okay. So I think it's starting from, like the kids say, don't go from 0 to 100, right? You start off from scratch, you start slowly. I think it's really important to find community. There are a lot of rec leagues in different sports that are out there. By all means, feel free to join one of those, right? They'll support you on your physical journey, but it'll also support you in your social life as well. What else would I recommend for folks? I think it's being patient. I think a lot of times, especially as adults or those of us who've been athletes before, where our brain is telling us, listen, you can do this, and your body says, nah, not no more. And so we get frustrated, and what do? We give up, right? So if you're going to tell, you have to hold true to your values as well. So if we're going to tell our kids, you got to push through, you got to persevere, you got to, keep going at it. I think we have to do and exercise those same skill sets and those same attributes.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I think just one, if you could share just one anecdotal about a story from Power Play that you find is just so inspiring. So whether that's, one girl's journey or an experience. I know when you and I called up, you were talking about the City Hall experience. And so any powerful experience that you can share with our audience, I think would be awesome to hear.
Yeah. Um, it'll be a great one. I'm not going to use her name. Okay. We had a young lady, I think, big stature, tall, going through a lot of the similar challenges that I think I faced at the very beginning, right? Where folks are like, listen, you have to use that height for something. My height does not define me. I know this now. I didn't know this when I was a kid. But being able to tell a young person, like, listen, this is not the only avenue that you can go, right? And so I remember her coming into our program, and she was so shy and so just like within herself. And over the course of a season, over the course of being within our program, you literally got a chance to see her blossom, right? One of the things that I manage a coalition of 10 nonprofits aside from Power Play. Power Play is the lead agency. We're called STARS, CGI. And, so we're not just sports, we're arts, we're literacy, we're leadership, we're heavily in the advocacy space. And during the pandemic, one of the things that we launched were town hall series. Why? Because it was during the pandemic, but it was also part of the social justice movement. And what you saw were our young people are very much aware, right? This generation, I love them for it. They're so aware of what's happening and they want to get involved, right? So they're seeing all of the protests that are happening. They're seeing the marches outside, right? And they want to get involved too. And it just kind of, you have to take a step back and say, listen, I don't know if that's the best route, but let me introduce you to other values or other ways that you can still engage in the art of protest, right? I think 2020 was also a national election year. And so they're like, oh, well, everyone's like really concerned about who the new president is going to be. Yeah, you should be. But at the same time, let me also tell you about what's happening on your local level and the impact that local politics plays on your life that's greater than anything that could be happening on the national level. And so we introduced this town hall series where we basically taught young people, the hierarchy of politics within New York City, but also what are the challenges? If you have the opportunity to have a conversation with a city council member, what's that conversation that you want to have? And during the pandemic, for them, they're all learning virtually. It was education equity. They're seeing that their friend who goes to private school has access to all of the resources that she needs to be able to take home and continue their practice. They're seeing in public school, it's a completely different ball game. And then in charter schools, completely different experiences. And so they wanted to have this conversation with a city council member on what education equity looks like. And we're so proud because we had, she's now the council speaker. Adrienne Adams, council member Adrienne Adams actually came forward and engaged in this conversation with our young people. And then from there, they went off into breakout rooms where they continued to lead and facilitate dialogue with their peers around this entire topic as well, right? Super proud of them. Going back to the original young lady, I remember her job or her role in this was to introduce the council member. And I remember her being so nervous that she started stuttering, you know what I mean? Like she's just like caught out there daring headlights, right? Years later, she comes home from college. She's going through some challenges, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, so I'm like president of my school's student union council, and I am doing this and I'm doing that. And it's just like, who are you? Because a couple of years ago, you were that person, that young person that was a deer in headlights, that was so scared to speak. And now you've taken on all these leadership opportunities. It's the participation in the sports, but it's also, once again, exposure to what leadership looks like, especially what women or female leadership looks like, and being able to engage in these dialogues with leadership, that now she's like, no, I can do this too, So I think that's one of my most powerful stories. I think it's one of the things that I hold close and dear to my heart when you're like, why am I doing this work? This is why I'm doing this work. I know, long-winded, I'm sorry.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. I think this is what helps all that you're sharing to come alive, right? To kind of give our listeners a little perspective of what the work actually looks like and the impact that you have at
Yeah.
Power Play. So thank you. Um, I I thoroughly enjoyed hearing about your work and your journey. I must say, very, very refreshing to know that organizations like Power Play exist to support young female athletes specifically, and just young girls in general.
Yeah.
It's really, really motivating and inspiring. And makes me think about our own organization and ways we might be able to partner. So we'll have to talk
Oh,
about
would
that
love that.
offline. Yes. So as we wrap up, we love to invite our guests to share with our listeners ways that they can keep in touch, follow your work. So if there are any ways that folks can check you out on any platforms out there, resources that might be of use, you mentioned some a moment ago. So yeah, please take a moment to share with our listeners how they can follow up.
Yeah, so my organization is Power Play NYC. We are local to New York. So the website is Power Play, one word, NYC. Power Play NYC, POWER PLAY NYC.org. Star CGI, which is the coalition that I manage. We also have our own page. They are starcgi.org. We're the same name handle on all social media platforms, so primarily Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Personally, I share a lot of the work, a lot of the exposure and the partnership work that we do as well. I do that on my personal LinkedIn page, and I can be found at Joneé Billy. So what is it? LinkedIn slash, I don't know my name, Joneé Billy. I'm pretty sure I'm the only Joneé Billy. So yeah, I'm happy to engage with folks. I'm building out my website, so we're not quite there yet, but we'll get there. But yeah, this was absolutely fun. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to engage with any of your followers and talk about what partnerships can look like and how we can continue to move the needle and create, be the change that we want to see in our communities.